Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Budhirayet Nashta Prayesha Padreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki. Alright, we're continuing the Srimad Bhagavatam in Prahlad's Prayers, Canto 7, Chapter 9, and we're on text 27. So in the previous verse, Prahlad was speaking about how he's surprised at the special mercy that he received from Nrsingadev, which even Lakshmi Devi hasn't received. 27. Naisha paravaramatir bhavato nanusyarjantor yatatma suhrido jagatas tatapi Sangsevaya suratarori vate prasara sevan rupam udayo paravaratvam. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai. Translation. Unlike an ordinary living entity, my Lord, you do not discriminate between friends and enemies, the favorable and the unfavorable, because for you there is no conception of higher or lower. Higher and lower. Nonetheless, you offer your benedictions according to the level of one's service, exactly as a desire tree delivers fruits according to one's desires and makes no distinction between the lower and the higher. Srila Prabhupada's purport. In Bhagavad Gita 4.11, the Lord clearly says, Ye yata mam prapadyante tamam stataiva pajamyaham. Quote, as one surrenders to me, I reward them accordingly. As stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jibar Shvarupahai Krishna Nitadas. Every living being is an eternal servant of Krishna. According to the service the living entity renders, they automatically receive benedictions from Krishna, who does not make distinctions, thinking, quote, here is a person in an intimate relationship with me, and here is a person I dislike. Krishna advises everyone to surrender to him. Sarvadharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam braja. One's relationship with the Supreme Lord is in proportion to that surrender, and the service one renders unto the Lord. Thus, throughout the entire world, the higher or lower positions of the living entities are selected by the living entities themselves. If one is inclined to dictate that the Lord grants something, one receives benedictions according to their desires. If one wants to be elevated to the higher planetary systems, the heavenly planets, they can be promoted to the place they desire. And if one wants to remain a hog or a pig on earth, the Lord fulfills that desire also. Therefore, one's position is determined by one's desires. The Lord is not responsible for the higher or lower grades of our existence. This is further explained quite definitely in Bhagavad Gita 9.25 by the Lord himself. Yanti deva vrata devan pitrun yanti pitrivrataha putan yanti putejya yanti madhyajino pimam. Some people want to be promoted to the heavenly planets, some want to be promoted to Pitriloka, and some want to remain on earth, but if one is interested in returning home back to Godhead, they can be promoted there also. According to the demands of a particular devotee, they receive a result by the grace of the Lord. The Lord does not discriminate, thinking, here is a person favorable to me, and here is a person who is not favorable. Rather, he fulfills the desires of everyone. Therefore the Shastras enjoin, Kama sarvakamo va mukshakam udaratihi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Quote, whether one is without desire, the condition of the devotees, or is desirous of all fruitive results, or is after liberation, one should with all efforts try to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for complete perfection, culminating in Krishna consciousness. That's Bhagavatam 2.3.10. According to one's position, whether as a devotee, a karmi, or a jnani, whatever one wants one can get if one fully engages in the service of the Lord. Jai.
Jai.
Om Jnanatimirantasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Vanchakalpatarupshascha Kripa Sindhupya Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So as I mentioned before I read today's verse, last week's verse has Prahlad surprised at the nature and magnitude of Lord Nrsingadev's mercy on him, and how he felt it eclipsed the mercy that even other great devotees have received. And Prabhupada talks extensively at how Krishna has a plan for all of us, and receiving that surprising gift that Krishna is trying to give us. And Sri Prahlad is elaborating further in this line that, in other words, why it is that Krishna would show such mercy to Prahlad. So he's simultaneously, deflecting attention from himself, because he is very much in the middle. He is getting a lot of attention. He is receiving a lot of grace from the Lord, publicly, in front of everybody, really practically in the universe. All the great demigods are there. His own guru, who he received so much instruction from when he was just in the womb, Narada Muni, he's there too. They're all seeing this. He's deflecting attention from himself, and he's putting attention on Krishna, Nrsingadev. He's taking himself out of the middle, and he's putting Krishna in the middle. I mean, he's not actually in the middle, Prahlad. He knows the way things are. He's elaborating for our benefit, because the problem that we all have as conditioned souls is that we exist as if we are in the middle. That's our problem, is this problem of perspective. That's basically what we have. We've got like this, like if you go to an optometrist and they tell you, you're short-sighted, you're nearsighted, you have like astigmatism, you have problem with focusing, this, that, the other. We have this like kind of problem of spiritual perspective where we think we're the center. And literally every other problem we have stems from that. And so Prahlad is reminding us by pointing out that he is not the cause of Krishna's putting so much grace on him. He's in the sense that he hasn't, he's not the cause of that. It's Krishna's nature, in other words. It's Krishna's nature. It's not like there's some mercantile relationship, right? In a mercantile relationship, you have purchased your status, right? I want to purchase this item or service, and I pay the price, whatever it is, and I get it. And I've earned it, and I can be proud of that, and I can show my receipt to anybody who has any question. I've paid for this. Prahlad is saying it's not like that. I don't deserve this. I've not earned this. I'm not a merchant in the marketplace of bhakti. In fact, he uses those words later. I'm not a vanik, he says. I'm not a merchant for your attention and your benedictions. When Nrsingadev says, take any benediction you want. And he's saying here, I'm not a merchant. I've not earned this. Rather, this is your doing because this is your nature. And what is that nature? That's what this verse is about. The nature is that Krishna does not discriminate between so-called enemies and friends. He's the actual center of existence. He can do that. And anybody who's dovetailed with that center, they can also do that. Because the center means everything is in relationship to that. If you're not in the center, if you're not centered, if you're somewhere in the fringes, then you have some sectarian point of view. And that's the unpleasant reality of being on the fringe of existence, not being aligned with the center. As long as you're not aligned with the center, you're a sectarian. You could be a polite sectarian, a peaceful sectarian, a nonviolent, generous sectarian, or a vicious sectarian, but you have some personal agenda because you still think that you're the middle. Something else other than the center is the center, right? And Prahlad doesn't have that problem. He sees, because of being fully dedicated to Krishna, he sees that you are the center. And because of that, you can actually be able to not discriminate. Because do we discriminate between our left and right hand? Well, I like this one, I don't like that one. No. They're both part of the body, right? They may have different uses, but they're both part of the body. Whose body? My body. Because in this context, I'm the center, right? And so from Lord Nrsingadev, from Krishna's perspective, he doesn't have any sectarianism. He doesn't play favorites. All the playing favorites that happens at the material level, that's all of us. All the chosen people, all the racial identification, all the linguistic pride, all the cultural one-upping, all the this, that, and the other, that's all in the human material level. Krishna's not doing that. He can't do that. That's not his nature. because he is the center. And he never says, yeah, I'm tired of that side over there. I just want this wing. I'm tired of that wing. I want this wing. I want this person, but not that person. No, he's like, everybody is accommodated, right? The sun is not sitting there thinking like, I'm gonna share my rays with those people over there and that planet and this moon and this asteroid, but not that one. That one's a jerk. No, it just gives. That's its nature. It doesn't discriminate, right? Krishna is exactly like that. He doesn't actually stop giving. Somebody can say, but you can fall out of his good graces. You can disobey. Well, yeah, but does that mean that you cease to be connected to him? No, that never happens. That never actually happens. There may be some legal, some moral, some karmic price to pay in order to be rectified, to be purified of whatever consequences there from one's stepping out of being in alignment, right? There's more or less degrees of that stepping out, but still one is connected to the Lord. That's just the way it is, right? Mm-hmm. Similarly, we may have some problem in our body, right? And the body has some imbalance. Let's say I make some dietary choices that are not good for me. Let's say I have an imbalance of pitta energy, Ayurvedic way to explain, and I create, I co-create with my body a problem where there's gout or like some effusion from my skin. And so some part of my body has to suffer until it comes back into balance. Maybe I have to change my diet. Maybe I have to apply some skin cream, or there's something that goes on, but it's still my body, right? I'm not like, you know what? Forget about that. Cut off that part of my body. No, it doesn't work that way in the spiritual context, because we're always whole. Bhagavad Gita explains very early that the soul is indivisible, right? The soul is indivisible means you don't become two people. It also means you don't become divided from God. Right? That's a branch that's never cut. That umbilical cord is always there. We're always connected to God. That's our ontological position. That's who we are, right? We may think we are, we may think we're not. We may remember it, we may forget. We may do it in this language or that language. We may be human or non-human. All those things can change, but we're always connected to Krishna. So we don't always remember that, but pure devotees do, and Krishna does. And that's what it means to be in the center. So he's saying here, you don't discriminate between friends and enemies, right? The favorable and the unfavorable. So what's the evidence of this? What's the most stark evidence of this? Who is the most favorable there in the whole assembly? Prahlad, right? He's the greatest devotee according to all the demigods. So he's getting all these benedictions. Someone can say God's playing favorites. Well, who's the most unfavorable? Or was the most unfavorable? Hiranyakashipu, the one who just got eviscerated in Nrsingadev's lap. Someone can say there it is. Krishna's plays favorites. This idea comes at the very beginning of Canto 7. This idea is presented. Parikshit and Shukadev, they have a conversation, and Parikshit begins the canto by saying, it appears from what you're saying about Krishna, it appears he plays favorites. And Shukadev says, no. And here's the evidence. I will relate this whole pastime about Prahlad and Nrsingadev and Hiranyakashipu. And he starts with all the Hiranyakashipu story. And now we're getting to the point where Hiranyakashipu has been killed. But in that killing, what happened? He got liberated. It's like, he didn't want Krishna. He wanted anything but Krishna. He wanted to take Krishna out of the picture, kill him, put himself in that chair, and put a little crown on his head and say, everybody, look at me, I'm God. That's what he wanted. He was the most unfavorable. And still, just by being touched by Nrsingadev, he gets benefit, because he's still part and parcel of the Supreme. So there is actually nothing one can do to divorce oneself from that relationship, right? And Prahlad realizes that. So he says, because of this, because of your nature, you're just offering benedictions according to the level of one's service and one's surrender, right? So there's no distinction. This is the beauty of Krishna consciousness. This is the beauty of any real, honest bhakti practice, under whatever name we may give it, is that it is essentially non-sectarian. In fact, really, it's the only thing that is non-sectarian. The only thing that's non-sectarian is to be connected to Source, and anything in relationship to that, whether it's, you call it bhakti yoga or you call it love of God in some other tradition, right? There's no other tradition. It's the same tradition. It's just different points of view on the same fundamental thing. We're not the center. There is Source. We're part and parcel of Source, and we give service. That's all it is. Anything that affirms that is actually non-sectarian. Anything that doesn't is actually sectarian, because it's like, well, no, actually the center is my political idea or my skin color. There's always going to be some way in which we insert something else. And we don't have to go very far to see the problems that creates, because our whole world is dominated by varieties of sectarian ideas. And some are better and some are worse, because in the modes of nature there are higher and lower. That's why people who are more moral, ideally, create systems of laws to regulate those who are less moral. You know, you can't actually just like walk down the street and take something out of someone's pocket. That's immoral, and there's consequences for that. And yet, anybody who doesn't recognize that they're breathing the air provided to them by source is also a thief. No, they can be a nice thief, but they're still a thief. So that's the meaning of sectarianism, is that until we recognize that I can't even breathe, I can't do anything without the source that's fully nourishing me at every step. Once we realize that, we're like, yeah, that's the center. Nothing else can be the center. And until we realize that, we're always, to some degree, kind of like, you know, there's this expression, honor among thieves. Here it is, honor among thieves. Like, you could have like a cadre of thieves, like, plan a bank heist. And as soon as they come out of the bank and they're dividing that money fairly, they're very like pious. It's like, okay, we have 4 compatriots, so we have to divide the $1 million into 4. You know, no more, no less. Everyone's very, very. It's like, that's nice, but at the end of the day, you still stole from the bank, right? Mm-hmm. You're still like, any Quentin Tarantino movie is basically about honor among thieves. Everyone is breaking the law, but among their system of thieves, they all have to be very nice and pious and egalitarian amongst each other. That's the material world. It's like, we want to pretend we're very honorable, but until we actually start to recognize source, our own sense of honor is very limited, and it's based on a perspective according to wherever we happen to be in the modes of nature. So Prahlad's not there; he's not in the modes of nature. So he sees that this benediction that Lord Nrsimhadev gave him isn't because he's great; it's because Krishna's great. That's his nature. His nature is to just give himself in unique and surprising ways to anybody who chooses him. Anybody, from any position. And this is very empowering, because it means that anybody in any position can be the receiver, the receptor of something unprecedented, right? And that's what Prabhupada focuses on the purport. It's a very empowering purport. He's saying, if you want to go to the heavenly planets, you can have that. You want to go to this place, you can have that. You want to go to hell, you can have that. You want to stay here, you can have that. And if you want to go to Krishna, you can have that. Who can have it? Anybody. Anybody who can hear him saying that can have it. Anybody. And it's empowering, and it's also quite leveling. You know, sometimes people hear this and it's actually a problem for them. It's like, well, wait a minute. What about that person over there? What about the criminals? What about the people who this or that? What about the like? And there is no answer to that. There's no group of people that are excluded from that mercy, and that can be uncomfortable for some people, because under the modes of nature, at some point, people become entitled. There comes a point where we're like, well, yeah, but like we're the chosen people, right? That always happens. There's always a way in which it's like, yeah, but we're really special. Mm-hmm. And that's just the ego, the false ego, reasserting itself, even in the middle of your Bhakti tradition. It's like, here it is. But all that, we're not the body, we're all connected to God, but really we're the chosen people, right? And the only thing that you have to worry about with choosing is, are you choosing, right? It's not that Krishna's playing favorites. We play favorites, right? As long as we're not playing favorites and we're just choosing the center, then we're also chosen people, right? That's it. That's our only consideration. Everybody else is like, it's up to them how much they choose. But Krishna is always choosing them, right? So from his point of view, there are no chosen people. So this is this is kind of like radical egalitarianism here. Krishna has never played favorites, is not playing favorites, and can never play favorites. It means you can't slip him a $20 bill. You can't wink at him. You can't, bat your eyelashes. There's nothing you can do to win him, to play a game. There's nothing you can do to be a favorite. You actually have to come clean and come correct, as they say in Detroit. You got to come correct. You got to be honest. Like, do I actually belong to you, Krishna? Or am I trying to like do something on the side? Am I trying to play a game and win something of your material currency for myself? Or am I actually just here for service? And if you're actually here for service, he loves you so much, you will get unconditional, amazing, surprising benediction you could never get trying to play the material, roulette table, a roulette game. You can't do that. There's no benediction you can get playing that material game that you'll get from Krishna just from the sincere desire he has to reciprocate with your honest service. So all we have to concern ourselves with is, am I surrendered and am I rendering service? And the answer is always like, to some degree. And so our process is like to refine that and to try to make it more honest, more real, more generous to Krishna, more selfless, more surrendered, better service, and more of it. And we don't really concern ourselves with what do I get from it, because if we understand this nature of Krishna, we can come to the conclusion that, I never have to worry. Whatever I could possibly, we talked about this last week, whatever I could possibly want, Krishna will like eclipse and surpass that. I can't even come to grips with how generous he is. I can't even ask for the things that are good for me. He knows better than I do. I don't have to worry about all that. All I have to worry about is, am I really centered, or am I starting to like drift? Am I starting to become sectarian again? Am I more about this thing or that thing than I am about the center? And then it's just about coming to the center again. And we don't have to worry about Krishna. He never drifts. He's never going to play favorites. He's never going to forget about us. Anything we ever did, Prabhupada says, it goes into a bank account. Krishna is always, always grateful, And Prabhupada also gives the spiritual mathematics of, you take one step to Krishna, he takes 10 steps to you, right? Mm-hmm. We're like about this big, and Krishna is really, really big. So his step, even if it's one step and one step, his step is so much larger than ours. But all we have to worry about is just doing our thing. And he's always going to be there in his end. He's never let anybody down. He's got a perfect track record. We may have broken so many promises, and so many lifetimes we have betrayed so many friends and lovers and children and vows, but Krishna's never done that. So, Om Tat Sat, Hare Krishna. Let's take some reflections on this beautiful verse, what you heard.
Beautiful class. Thank you, Shamya. I really appreciated what you were sharing around earlier on, how in relation to how Krishna doesn't discriminate between friends and enemies. And you related it to how everyone's accommodated by the sun.
Right.
And how the sun isn't like, okay, I'm only going to give light to that plant, to tomatoes, but not to Brussels sprouts, because Brussels sprouts don't deserve the light, or they haven't given enough to me, or they're not doing this, right? It's like, and that to me really clicks, because the sun, I've never thought of the sun doing that. It's just, it rises, it provides sustenance for all of us, and that's just the way it is. Like, there's no arguing that in my mind, and there's no question of it. And so that was really helpful for me to hear in that analogy, and in how, in the same way, there's no arguing it, there's no question of it. Krishna just gives and provides to all of us, and whether we're recognizing that or not will contribute to our level of gratitude, and
right.
Which then will contribute to our level of sincere service or not, or remembering he's at the center, or that something else is. So that was really beautiful and helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and just like the sun, we can go outside and receive the sunshine, or we can stay inside and get a vitamin D, pill or like deficiency because we actually don't function. We're living underground. Or we can come closer to the sun and just get warmer and warmer and warmer. So it's an analogy, and the point is that our bhakti relationship is also free. We can hold ourselves away and hide ourselves away, or we can come out and be nourished in ways we can never even imagine. Right? So, yeah. That's Prabhupada's analogy. He uses the sun. More reflections.
Thank you so much. It was it really sort of clarified so much for me today, this verse and all of Prahlad's prayers. Prahlad did not sit there and in his devotion say, and by the way, would you take care of my father? Take him out. He's causing me all these problems. He's punishing me. He's doing everything to me. It just reminded me that Krishna will answer our prayers, even when we don't know what the prayers are, or don't
Yeah.
even know what to pray for. His devotion was inversely proportional to what needed to be done. And as you said, Hiranyakashipu was liberated. It wasn't just a slaying. He was liberated by Krishna's mercy. Um, and I keep on thinking that the phrase that I've used a lot of times in other situations, that I might not like what you do, but I will always love you.
Yeah.
And I think that Krishna is the message is, it's not by me showing up to doing everything exactly correctly that Krishna sees me as being more qualified than somebody else who doesn't even know how to chant. It's just that I have to keep in my lane. I have to keep on doing what I need to do to show my devotion to Krishna, and the rest will be taken care of. Not to worry about anything else or anybody else but myself. So thank you so very much for the class.
Yeah. He's very grateful and he's very attentive. And as far as, Prahlad's father, um, this is also very instructive, is that Krishna is not sectarian and he wants the best for everybody. So do his devotees. We can see that not only did Prahlad not really even ask for help, which is remarkable, but after he was saved from the hands of his father and Hiranyakashipu was killed, Prahlad actually, he'll say at the end of these prayers, like, since you're asking me, if you could please, like, help my dad out, because he was very confused and ignorant, um, you know, and then Nrsingadev said, I've already liberated him and everybody in your family for so many generations just because of you and your bhakti. So we can see he doesn't become the enemy of his enemy, which is something that someone can do when they're non-sectarian. Otherwise, there's some way in which, like, oh, you don't like me, I don't like you, or you're different from me, you're less than. There's always got to be some shade of that, and only to the degree that we're actually centered with that source are we able to be free of that. And Prahlad was completely free of that, as Krishna is. He's able to give benedictions to even a terrorist, frankly. You know, that's a very high thing, even in material society. If somebody commits a crime against you, you're like, you know what? That's terrible, and there's a cost to be paid for it. But I forgive you as a person. Like, I don't hate you. That would be anyone would consider that admirable. Like, that's a function of like a very high level of consciousness. So we see that in Prahlad. Yeah. More. Let's get more.
Hi, Krishna.
Howdy, howdy, ball.
Hey, well, thank you so much for this class. It's so nice to, so glad I finally made it awake so that I could come and get the nectar of this morning. Um, yeah, similar to what Nancy was saying, like, I sometimes, like, I don't know what I need, I don't know what I want, and, 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 but Krishna knows, but I find sometimes that it's sometimes I find that I fall in and out of this. I trust Krishna. He knows what I need and how to take care of me. But then when it's something really hard, like for example, I want to go on a pilgrimage, and the answer, and then but I can't.
Right.
And I'm thinking, like, why would Krishna do that? Why would he not let me be close to him? Why what and I still have a hard time so many years later, like, trying to figure out, you know like, because I know there's a lesson. Like, that's the one thing I do know. um but it in the moments, I feel like it's hard for me to sometimes trust,
Yeah.
sometimes, like, not. And I think the trust for me is, like, to not be in control, and to know that somebody else is in control, because you on your own will, I don't know what, like, I will be an ignorant pig, so to speak, on my
Mhm.
own. In my own, left to my own devices, I will be that, I will not do the right thing. And that's where I have to sort of, it's almost like in an AA, like, give your life over to the care of
Yeah.
someone, like I know I've been to, the 12 steps. It's similar to that, giving your life over. And it's like, I feel like I do it, and then so, and then sometimes what happens is not what I thought would happen, and I'm like, I don't understand, I don't get it, and I get very confused, and it's so. I mean, the only thing I guess I can keep doing is like this morning. This was such a beautiful this purport was so beautiful, and like you said, this listening to Prahlad and really seeing how he's selfless, and so just try, like I guess I just try each day to be better at that, to be better at trusting, to be better at being selfless, and not worrying about like, well, what about me, not being in the center, because it's really not
Yeah.
about me ever.
Yeah, it's this whole dynamic of learning to trust Krishna is like so central to her whole life as devotees. Thank you. I mean, you're, having, I don't know if you want to call it doubts or confusion or like, why is this happening? That's normal, and it puts you in good company actually, because even in the first canto, chapter 9, Bhishma Dev, who is an unbelievable devotee, he's listed in the list of 12 Mahajanas in canto 6, like great souls. He says in his prayers when he's leaving his body in front of Yudhishthira, he says, even the greatest sages have never understood. I can never understand how it was that I witnessed what you all had to go through, you Pandavas. I can only understand now that it was Krishna's arrangement in this way. I knew it was his arrangement, but how it made sense, I couldn't know. And no great soul, no matter how great, has ever been able to figure him out. But he wasn't saying it in a form of like he wasn't raging against that. He was just in wonderment. So you have that to look forward to, is that we're never going to figure him out, but we can come to the point of being like, yeah, I don't know how, but it's going to work out. I don't know how, but it's a better idea than mine. And that's what Bhishma Dev is showing. Is like he's like crying such joy seeing it all work out in the end, but he was also just as much confused as anybody when it was happening. So it's like that. Yeah. Any other reflections or questions or comments? Jai Krit, Prabhu.
Haribol.
Adi.
Man, I don't know. We could probably talk about sectarian philosophy for hours. So,
Yeah.
but
It's a problem.
mhm. Man, I mean, my brain was kind of going all over the place. But I mean, I think going back to the point of like Krishna being the center, um, the the he's equal to all, right? Uh, it's like the axle in the wheel. Krishna is the axle in the wheel, and we're all just spokes in that wheel. And no matter what our purpose are, if we're good or bad or whatever, um, we rely on Krishna's source. Like we are, the part and parcel of Krishna. Um, and he's like, he has to be completely free of everything, because that's how the science of this whole universe works. Like Gita 7:7, he's the string within the pearls, right?
Right.
He suspends everything in the universe, no matter what it is. So he has to be that neutral center. And I go back to like you were talking about the chosen people, and that like that tribalistic brain, when we let our tribalistic brain kind of dictate that, we're in one group and we're in another, these folks are in another group, and my tribe's better than that tribe. And folks get empowered by that because, I think it's like, what is it? I think it's in 7 to 2021, where he talks about, you put your devotion into anything, even the demigods. I'm the source of all faith, right? And he makes his faith steady in that particular deity, I think but it could be anything, right? So there's that kind of false empowerment, and I always kind of thought of that now as I see it, as it is. It's like a lensing effect, like the stoplights. Like Krishna's behind the light. We want to get to the white light, but there's a green light, a yellow light, and a red light. and we all think there's different colors because of the perspectives and the way that we try to connect with God. And that kind of creates that kind of weird, um, a tribalistic kind of mentality because, we're stuck in these human bodies and our brains just naturally want to just tribe together, right?
Yeah.
So I was like thinking about that, and yeah, I think the takeaway is though is like we have to remember that Krishna isn't good or bad, and like that's another thing with sectarianism is like people think God is good and like the devil is bad, or there's these players. But like if you truly like read the Mahabharata and and you really get into the Srimad Bhagavatam, you understand that the Devas, which would be like angels, and like the Asuras, which are like the demons, they are but players, and God is the neutral ground, like the neutral power behind it all. And there are times where the Asuras are going to destroy the demigods, and the demigods just flat out surrender and ask
Yeah.
Krishna to come. And Krishna comes, and he still tries to negotiate. He does it all the time. He does it as Vishnu between the battle between Asuras and Devas. He does it in and Indraprastha when he was trying to like get the Kurus to not fight with the Pandavas
Hmm.
right before the battle of Kurukshetra. So like he's always the neutral guy. He's always trying to make peace because he loves that. He's impartial to everybody, but he doesn't want people to like kill each other. But that's also part of the divine plan, right? So yeah, so that's my kind of 2 cents. Like I said, my brain was kind of all over the place with this, but I always it's always near and dear to my heart, all this stuff. So thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you.
I'll stop.
Yeah, that's great. Sectarianism is such an interesting thing. It can even exist in a pure form, actually, in Bhakti. We can see how in these prayers Prahlad expresses his love for his guru, and he says like, how could I ever leave the service of my guru? Someone could say that's sectarian. But the difference is that when one is actually centered with the source proper, they're not in the modes of nature, their allegiances, their love, their family affection, their sense of like belonging doesn't create a problem for anybody. There's no way in which it reduces anyone else. We don't have to be ashamed of like loving Prabhupada, loving our gurus, loving each other, like appreciating this shastra more than another shastra. We're just understanding that they're all transcendental, but this one really touches my heart. This one has really captured me, right? And so I have a relationship, like, or I love Prahlad. Like I'm not as into like this other section of Bhagavatam, but this is like very, very dear to me, or something. For example, someone could say that's sectarian, but if it's actually pure, it doesn't create a problem. No one's actually like, well, I won't read that other section because it's not the real thing. This is the real thing, and then it's material. And then, but pure devotees can actually have like preferences, and we can have like spiritual family, and so we have that to look forward to. We don't just kind of merge into like homogeneous nothingness, or everything's all equal. But yeah, all the sectarian stuff at the material level is just a problem. Jai. All right. Well, Sri Prahlad Maharaj ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Now let's take this opportunity to offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord who are just like desire trees. They can fulfill the desires of everyone and are full of compassion for all the fallen conditioned souls. Jai. Vanchakalpatarupyascha kripasantubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna. Anantakoti Vaishnava ki jai. Hare Bol.